What's going on YouTube? It's your boy G-Dub. I wanted to make a video today talking about the California fast food minimum wage and how, oh yeah, it hasn't caused any issues.
This is a big deal. $20 an hour, 80% of the workforce. There's a lot of mythology about fast food. You know, Johnny used to learn the value of hard work. You know, he'd work a few hours in his first job. That's not the case, folks. That's a romanticized version of a world that doesn't exist. 80% of the workforce in these fast food places, 80% are people of color. Two-thirds are women.
This is going to help continue to pay our bills, help some people get out of eviction, help us catch up where we need to catch up because we haven't recovered from COVID just as of yet. So this is just the beginning of our wins.
Just like how we were saying what was going to happen is you raise the minimum wage up to $20 an hour, it's just going to slowly but surely push everything else up. And now that it's been a year, that's exactly what has happened. I wanted to go over this video with Valuetainment where they touch on the topic, and they're reading a report that says that they've lost 18,000 jobs because the fast food companies, they don't have the money to pay $20 an hour and keep the same amount of staff. So surprise, surprise, what are they doing? They're firing a bunch of people. They fired all their delivery drivers, and now all the delivery has to go through Uber Eats and all their fees and Grubhub. And so that in itself is causing an issue. And so, yeah, it's a pretty sucky situation, especially for if you're a business owner out here in California. I can just imagine it's like everywhere you go, they're going to offer you, let's say $20 an hour, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, how am I going to get $20 an hour for doing this office job when they're paying guys $20 an hour to put French fries in bags? And so then it just totally screws it up for all the other manufacturers or all the other employers. And so now everybody is basically like, well, whatever, we're just gonna have to, we'll pay the $20 minimum wage to those that we can afford to, and then we're just gonna raise the prices up across the board. And so that's exactly what's going on. So now your fast food went from $10-ish to $15 to $20 if you want to get something decent. I mean, can you imagine spending $15 on a McDonald's meal? I mean, and that food is terrible. You scarf it down in 5 to 7 minutes and it's $20, and then you got to work 1 hour just to make one meal. So if you eat twice out in a day, then that means that your 8 hours of work just dropped down to 6 hours of work. And so, and that's only 2 meals. I mean, I know I eat 3 meals a day. So that's only if you eat 2 meals a day, that's $40. And so that's 2 hours of your shift. I like to break things down as to how much work do I have to do. And so seeing these prices and everything that's going on, it's insanity. And, you know, who would have thunk it that this was going to go down? Just everybody with common sense in their head who basically thought like, oh, this isn't going to end well. Well, surprise, surprise, that's exactly what's going on. And so this guy right here is a PBD. He's pretty cool. Patrick Bet-David. There's some, you know, stuff out there online where he basically got his whole beginning up in MLM. So I think this guy has good stuff to say, but I think he also is doing whatever it takes to get that money. And so, you know, it's like you either can have, most of the time, you can be rich or have morals. Be rich or have morals. And he's one of those people that kind of proves that point. Now, he does do good for the space, and he's better than a lot of other woke garbage out there, but still, I still keep my reservations about the good old PBD. But here, let's see what he's got to say.
Let's talk about the number one state in unemployment, in homelessness, highest in taxes, and the one that keeps coming up with bad ideas.
Here, get the trophy ready.
California's $20 fast food minimum wage that they came up with, that everyone's like, oh my God, revolutionary. If California can do it, so can you. Well, before you try to be California with this $20 an hour minimum wage idea, watch these numbers closely. The $20 fast food minimum wage led to 18,000 fewer jobs. A National Bureau of Economic Research paper reported that California's $20 an hour minimum wage, enacted in September of 2023, effective in April of 2024, led to 2.7% employment decline. That's a big number in the fast food sector compared to other U.S. regions, with a median estimate of 18,000 jobs lost relative to counterfactual. Adjusting for pre-AB 1228 trends, the decline increases to 3.2%. The Employment Policies Institute estimated non-tipped restaurant workers lost 250 hours annually, equating to $4,000 in lost income or 7 weeks of work per employee. California Globe reported that thousands of fast food jobs were shed in anticipation of higher costs, including 1,200 drivers at Pizza Hut. After 1,200 drivers just at Pizza Hut. Holy moly. After the law took effect, restaurant automated to avoid higher wages, with some closing entirely. Stanford University data indicated over 10,000 fast food jobs were lost by June of 2024. It's a year ago. Despite the governor's office claimed job increase, a claim contradicted by federal data. By the fall, California Gavin Newsom signed and defended the minimum wage law. Tom.
So guess what? Cause, meet, effect. So I take you back to New York City. Was it Michael Bloomberg that said fast food workers in New York City were going to get like $15 an hour? This goes back, Rob. This goes back a little while, several years. If we could find it really, 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 really fast. So Michael Bloomberg comes out and says, okay, minimum wage has to go up in New York, and it has to go up for fast food workers. You know, fast food workers have to get a minimum, a living wage. Really? 16-year-old kid flipping burgers part-time after school needs by law to have a living wage? Are you kidding me? So anyway, guess what that led to? Kiosks.
Oh, he's
kiosks.
The guy.
So suddenly you went into McDonald's. You ever been to McDonald's and
It's
just
a robot.
go,
It's a
and just
machine.
you go up to the wall. It's like a kiosk. And by the way, it's the same thing that happens, and everybody was screaming 20 years ago when Southwest Airlines was one of the first to put kiosks in airports. Wait, what about the workers? To all of us who used to fly planes, what about the damn lines?
Yeah, exactly.
This is easier. I like this. So guess what's happened? California puts in this, and guess what? You have cause and effect. Combination of Pizza Hut, some of them said, we can't even operate. So group one, Pizza Hut, we can't even operate. We're closing some of them. And we also, and thanks to crime in Oakland, everyone closed all of them, right? Then you would now have all of these other people where the decision in New York that led to the kiosks getting into McDonald's, this accelerates adoption of kiosks. This accelerates automated food handling back on the grill. That's what this does. Because capitalists go, if I'm going to be forced to take these workers and go to $20, I'm not, my cost structures aren't made for that. And by the way, if property taxes are going on, what is that Pizza Hut sitting on? California dirt that has California property tax. So you start adding it all up, and suddenly, if you're just looking for votes, you put the $20 minimum wage out there. But if you're looking for burgers, that's not what you want to do, because pretty soon burgers are harder to find because they're closing. That's what's happening here. And you're also seeing faster adoption of kiosks.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
So yeah, that's exactly what's going on. They're going to start rolling in all the kiosks, which are basically they have been doing. But see, they've got this whole thing twisted because they say that people need to make a living wage working at McDonald's. You know, call me crazy, but those jobs were never designed to pay for a family a family of 4 and to raise them on. Those jobs, it's a low barrier to entry. They could basically train you in a couple of days to do that type of stuff. You know, you get paid in retrospective of how much value you bring to the market. And that's what they're getting twisted, is everybody just wants to get higher wages, but that's not the way economics works. If you start raising up the minimum wages, then everything else is going to get raised up. And so then all of the owners, and they're all going to raise prices of all their products, their services. And so McDonald's was never meant to feed a family of 2, or 2 adults, or 4 adults, or 2 adults with 4 kids, 4 people. It was never meant for people to raise families on. You know, unfortunately, you do have some middle-aged people who are working in these restaurants, but it was never meant to do that. You know, you need to grow up and grow with your age, and you need to take on harder responsibilities. That's why you become a manager or whatever the case may be. But it doesn't matter that you think if you've been there for so long, oh, I just deserve more money. It's like, no, these positions can only pay so much money per the position. You can't get paid $30 an hour because you've been at McDonald's 10 years. It doesn't work like that. Their profit window is pretty small. And so they can't afford to pay workers that much. So once the workers start getting up and higher wages, it's like, you either have to become a manager or I'm going to have to let you go because I can't afford it. I can hire a brand new kid who is 16 or 18 years old who can come in, and I could pay them the absolute minimum wage, and then I can train them in a week and then basically be doing a good enough job. Now, I think what a lot of these workers are running into, or a lot of these companies are running into, is that a lot of the young workers, they just don't care. They don't want to be there. They are stuck, you know, growing up on their phones, and so work sucks. I can just imagine if I were Gen Z and I grew up with a tablet and I was getting dopamine just from watching a screen, that's going to make my life so much harder, because now in order to get dopamine, you have to actually accomplish stuff. You have to work on things that are hard, work on them, fail, learn till you succeed. And there's a lot of people who they've just been getting all their dopamine from their screens. And so once you start going into jobs, oh, I don't like this job, and there's nothing fun about it. It's like, yeah, welcome to adulting and life. Life and adulting is not fun, and it's often hard. And so that's why you have to pick and choose where you struggle, and you've got to, you know, it's like you better make half of your day struggling. Everybody's got 24 hours a day, so you better use 12 hours of your day being productive, because if you don't, then you are stealing from tomorrow. And so you're going to be getting older and older, and then you're not going to be making the money you need to survive and to do the things that adults need to do. And so that's where they get it twisted. And the whole reason they raised that minimum wage was for votes. Let's be honest. That's the whole reason why they do a lot of the stuff they do, is because they know there are so many people that work in these food and these restaurants, and they're like, dude, I'll get their vote just by raising the minimum wage. But see, it's a monkey's paw, and because you think like, oh, now I'm making more money, but you've been granted your wish, but it's now causing these other issues in your life, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I'm making more money, but everything's more expensive, so what the hell? Like, it's like I didn't go up anywhere. I moved up, but so did everything else. And that's exactly what's going to happen. You can't continually move up minimum wage and keep everything the same. It doesn't work like that. Either those businesses are going to fire people so they have less staff, or they're going to leave. It's like nobody wants to own a business and potentially gamble with $250,000 running a franchise restaurant if they're only going to make 10%, because you can make 10% fairly easy just in the stock market. It's like I might as well put my money in Amazon stock and then just let that money slowly but surely increase. I mean, if you would have put that money in gold or Bitcoin, you would be making way more money. So what sounds better is to put money in Bitcoin and just watch it rise, which it's not always going to be like that, but right now that's the way it sure seems? Or do I want to put it into a restaurant where I have to be an operator own and run the restaurant and put up with all the nonsense and dealing with all these low intelligence, low aged workers with very little experience who don't know how real life is, and they don't, a lot of people, and I was one of them when I was a kid, I didn't even know when I had a good opportunity or I was working a good job. It usually takes you having to lose a good job or lose something in your life to make you actually appreciate the things that you have. And when you're young, you just don't have that much loss going on because most of the time the kids are just in school. They aren't working that many big jobs. You don't have families. You're not having to adult just yet, because as soon as you start having to adult, it's like if you don't meet the standards of your job, you get fired. If you don't meet the standards of paying your cell phone bill on time, they charge you or they cut it off. If you don't meet the standards or you're not paying your car note, then they're going to come and repo your car. And that is the difference between the young adults and the being an adult and having to adult for real in real life. And so that's what sucks, is because they hear the politicians and the government and they're saying, oh no, it's all good, you're right, you should be able to buy a house working at McDonald's. It's like, no, that was never intended to be. McDonald's was always intended to be a job. You work for a couple of years while maybe you're in high school, out of high school, in college, or it's to pick up an extra shift somewhere. You pick up a couple extra bucks a week by working a couple hours. It was never made to go from spending 12 years in high school so you can flip burgers at McDonald's. That's not what that's made to do. You can do it for a little while, but you can't survive on that wage. It's not a real livable wage. Now they're trying to push that number up and make it a supposed livable wage, but then it's making everything else go up. So now basically we're all having to pay for that small bump that all of these low-end minimum wage jobs got. And it's really, it's not fair to all of us, and it's not gonna help these people in the long run. In the beginning, it looks like, oh wow, I'm making more on my paycheck, but then you start realizing, well damn, everything else has gone up, so I'm not making more. And now they've actually had to let go. We used to run this store with 6 people, now we have to run it with 5, and now I have to do more. It's like, so yeah, I got paid a little bit more money, but now I have to do a lot more, and I have to cover more shifts, or you get worse shifts because you have less people and it gets to funky coverage. So it was really a stupid bonehead job for the politicians to push this, but once again, they don't care. They just want your vote. And so this is where you have to use critical thinking and listen to podcasts like these guys and make better decisions, because this is a perfect example of what happens when you lead and you think with only emotion.
Michael Bloomberg, presidential candidate 2020, supported $15 an hour minimum wage, but his stance on minimum wage has evolved over time because donors said, hey man, I own 10 McDonald's. You're not going to see a penny in your election fund, shorty, unless we can do something about this minimum wage. It's hurting me. Shorty. And so that's what happened. But the kiosk accelerated in McDonald's after New York came out and said this, because capitalists look, hey man, I'm not trying to run these kids out of my McDonald's. Whatever is the best, most cost-effective way to get burgers to the person standing there with their $10 bill, I want to do it. And if you're going to make me do minimum wage here, then I'm going to look at it and say, well, the airline's putting kiosks, maybe I'll put in kiosks. That's all that happened. And suddenly this is some evil capitalist thing, and no one's talking about the National Bureau of Economic Research. All they needed to do was to point out who was the guy that led this. So they're saying fast food leads to fewer jobs. So they're talking about fewer jobs and they're talking about this impact. Talk about the leader that has caused this. And this is Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom is reduced, and he'll come out take credit to Healthier California because I've been slowly eradicating the scourge that is fast food on our diets. He'll take credit for it.
Basically, those guys only touched on it for a couple of seconds, but yeah, we all knew this is what was going to happen. We knew that if you kept raising the minimum wage, that it was going to cause the price of everything else to go up, and they were going to start cutting jobs. And so that's exactly what's happening. And so really, man, Gavin Newsom, I can't believe we basically impeached him and then somehow he got voted right back in. And I have a feeling it's from all the people who with all the handouts. So you have half of California who's working their ass off and working jobs and doing what they need to do to stay on top or get ahead. And then you have the other half with the homeless and the people who are on EBT and the people who are on unemployment, and they are, or the people who are complaining about social justice and how everything needs to, minimum wage needs to be $50 an hour. There's literally somebody who said that. There was literally someone who said that minimum wage needs to be brought up to $50 an hour. And it's like,
What an idiot!
what are you talking about, you moron? That would mean everything else goes up too. And so these people, it's crazy. They will say and create these sound bites, and then you'll have the news and the media run with it. But it's like, no, these plans need to be figured out. And it's like, okay, well, let's see what happens if we raise the minimum wage to $50. What would happen? It's pretty easy to understand and to figure out that the price of everything is going to go through the roof. The owners of the companies anywhere, Albertsons, the Cragen, O'Reilly, and all of these other places, it doesn't matter where you go, just about every place has a minimum wage person working there and or a job for that they pay minimum wage. Well, so now what are you going to do? You move that to $50. So now let's say you're at Cragen O'Reilly and you pay your guy at the behind the counter who just rings people up minimum wage. That's probably what he deserves, maybe a little bit more, but it's right around. They don't bring a whole ton of value. You just are ringing people up and you're just checking the computer. Well, now the manager, so let's say minimum wage is $20 an hour. Well, what do you think they got to pay their manager in order for the management to deal with the nonsense? Well, they've got to get paid at least $25 an hour. I mean, it's like, that's even still not even a lot of money. And you have a lot of people who I've noticed that are working as managers and they're full-blown adults. And so you're trying to live on $25 an hour. So if you start raising that up to where the minimum position is goes from $25 an hour to $50 an hour. Well, now what is that manager gonna have to make? That manager is going to have to make $60 an hour or $55 an hour. And so it doesn't work. The math doesn't math. And that's the problem. And that's what has always been the problem. But if you don't want to look at the full picture and you just want to cherry pick the things that make you feel good, well, then this will never work because you're not being objective and looking at this thing with the complete picture. And so that's where we run into these problems. And that's what the problem is with politicians is they want to the only thing they want to do is get reelected. They just want to make a little bit more money. And they want to continue their reign of terror on the people and their constituents. And so they don't care. They're just going to do and say whatever they need to get elected. And so they know there's a lot of people who work these lower end wage jobs and they say, hey, we think you guys should make $50 an hour. So then they all go out and vote for them. But then you put it into play and let's say it actually does get passed. Well, now you have all these businesses who have to fire people and have to make all these adjustments. And then you have people complaining and saying, oh, these businesses are monsters and they're firing people and they're having to pay their managers less money. And it's like they aren't doing this out of the kindness of their heart. A business is so that way they could make money. You invest money into your business and you're hoping to make a decent profit. That's what runs the world, that's what runs America, and that's what the American dream is. You come in, you get a job, getting paid a minimum salary, you add value to the marketplace, and then hopefully you get paid more money. And the more value you bring to the company, the more money you make. Now you might be able to jump to another company and get paid more, but you've always got to be increasing your value. You can't just get paid more for nothing. It doesn't work like that. Economics doesn't work like that. And so that's what a lot of these people don't understand. And I think when you start putting only emotion into these and you say, oh no, I deserve to have that, I should be able to have a living wage, and that's 100% true. You should be able to have make a living wage for however old you are. But if you're 40 years old and you haven't put the steps in to challenge yourself and get harder jobs and sacrifice, and then why do you deserve to make more money just because you're getting old? No, it doesn't work like that. And so if you are a loser at the age of 50 and the only thing you know how to do is flip burgers, well, you should get paid just about the same as an 18-year-old who knows how to flip burgers, because you're bringing the same value. However old you are, it doesn't matter. Now, you should make a little bit more money because more than likely older people are more responsible and they could potentially, you would have less headaches with them. So sure, I can see them making a little bit more money, but you can't go from $15 an hour to $20 an hour and expect there not to be a bunch of shifts in the businesses and a bunch of changes that have to go on. And that's exactly what's happened over the last year. And so now this just gets to be thrown up in their stupid faces, and now they get to see that what they did doesn't work. So now hopefully people are starting to realize what's crazy is they'll blame the prices of groceries and food on Trump or Biden or something stupid like that. And it's like, no, it's these smaller decisions that are made by the states and by other politicians that really are causing a lot of these issues. And so, you know, does Trump have something to do with it? Sure. Does Biden have something to do with it? Sure, but not nearly as much as these bozos passing a $20 an hour minimum wage. You can't do it. And so this is what happens. This is what now we're running into, and now people are starting to see it. And so, you know, you have to start wising up and realizing that sometimes just because something sounds good, I need to have all the information to make an informed decision. Sure, something sounds great. Well, I can't shut off my brain and then just go with the one thing that sounds great, because life is about, the devil is in the details. Life is about nuances, and you need to know all of the little nuances because they are what makes up the full and actual picture. So hopefully that makes some sense. I've got to touch on this topic a lot more because it is causing a bunch of issues, especially here in California. And so I just saw that clip and I just wanted to bring it up, and basically it confirmed what I was thinking and what I think a lot of people are thinking is going on. Oh, why is everything so expensive? It's because of stuff like this. And so now that you know, hopefully in the future we can make better decisions. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want some more content from my channel, then go ahead and give me a subscribe. And thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you later.